I've been bringing you guys a ton of news on college football 25, but it's time to talk about Madden 25. A big thanks to EA Sports for bringing me down to their studio in Orlando last month so I can get hands-on with the game, play in about 4-ish hours or so, and I asked a ton of questions. I'm on the road to 300,000 subscribers. If you enjoy seeing videos like this, do me a favor. Hit the subscribe button, hit the like button, and I got plenty more dropping for you. Now, let's jump into the big changes for Madden 25 this year. The biggest addition that EA talked a ton about at the event was something called Boom Tech. And I'm gonna be honest, I don't necessarily love the name, but there's like a bunch of things that kind of make up Boom Tech, and it's a little complicated, so let's talk about what exactly this feature is. Tackling has been mostly solid in Madden over the last couple of years, but I mean, don't get me started on pursuit angles, but tackling for the most part has been pretty good. What they're doing this year with Boom Tech is kind of leaning into like a heavy physics-based tackling system for Madden 25. Now, to be honest, I was not fully sold at first, but they showed us a ton of different footage showing different combinations of players with hit sticks, cut sticks, trucks, drives, jukes, stiff arms, you name it, they showed it, and it started to kind of make sense. How they explained it is that it's a data-driven physics system that looks at timing, momentum, weight, speed, strength, and player ratings to kind of determine what happens in these one-on-one ball carrier impact sort of animations, and then branching animations from there, and it kind of gives you some wild outcomes. That is like a super long sentence with a lot of different buzzwords, but what that basically means is that if you have Derrick Henry in the open field against a smaller defensive back, it's fun for you and not the defensive back. The hit stick is also getting a little love this year, but I think it'll be a little controversial at first. If you've ever played MLB The Show, you're probably familiar with the concept of the perfect hit. If you don't play MLB The Show, what that means is basically your timing and lining up the ball on the bat is basically perfect in both scenarios. And similar to that, the hit stick now has a timing-based mechanic that's added to it, and I think a lot of people are going to struggle at first with this because I definitely did, but there's something to work with there. What they're basically trying to do, though, is have the new changes to the hit stick reward you for your timing and your approach angle, plus the ratings of the actual player you're using. Now, me personally, I was out there whiffing on a lot of hits, more than I want to admit. But what I ultimately kind of came down to is that I've been relying too much on the hit stick. And I think a lot of us have. It's just sort of become a crutch where we're flicking the stick up or flicking it down. But I think this year, more than ever, you got to rely on other tackle types, your normal tackle, your dive tackle. Those need to be used in combination with the hit stick. As we're using the hit stick mechanic, they have on-screen feedback that kind of tells you how you're doing. Did you do it too early? Did you do it too late? Were you perfect with your timing? Which you'll get an on-screen prompt and a little sound that is kind of cool, but this means you can stop blaming the game for your missed tackles. All that to say, though, when you actually hit a perfect hit stick and you hear that little time feast, they have some haptic feedback on the controller as well, like, it's a great feeling. And to me, that's what a hit stick should be. It shouldn't just be every single time somebody goes through, you're lighting them up with a hit stick. Like, you need to have the time and place to use it, and it feels like they kind of have a pretty good handle on that this year. On offense, though, they've added a ball carrier balance and recovery system. Now, if you're saying, is this the stumble mechanic? No, it's not the stumble mechanic. How they kind of explained it is that it's a feature that determines a specific Boom Tech branching animation based on the quality of the hit and the ratings of the player involved. And I'm gonna be honest, it feels like a lot of words that are basically being said there, but after spending some time with the game, it kind of feels like the system is around how the offensive player can stay upright and how quickly they can get back to running up the field to what they ultimately want to do, which is try to get in the end zone. The coolest thing, though, that I noticed is that just because I absorbed a hit and stayed upright didn't mean that I was safe. I had a few instances where I branched off of a tackle with like a Saquon or an Isaiah Pacheco, and I felt like I was good. I broke off the first tackle, but then a second player, as I'm sort of in this recovery zone, they lit me up. And the earlier you were hit in that recovery zone, the more detrimental it can be to you. If you're hit sort of later in that window, then you have a much higher chance of keeping it moving or getting a favorable outcome. I think to the average player, it feels like a pretty solid upgrade year over year. They'll notice it, but I don't know how much they're really going to appreciate it. But if you're somebody who's logged like hundreds of hours in a Madden over the last season or last 2 seasons, I feel like it's something that's a little bit more apparent to you, and you'll kind of get the nuance of it and be able to leverage it better. Something I love, though, about the running is that there are a few signature styles you're going to immediately notice on some of the key players. So we've all seen highlights of Isaiah Pacheco and how he angry runs like a little 5-year-old. Reminds me of my kids sometimes, and they angry run, but that is in the game. I noticed Christian McCaffrey's running style looked really cool. Saquon Barkley's looked really cool as well. But to me, it's just a breath of fresh air that we have signature running styles for players, because I think for the longest time, we all see the player sort of wiggling down the sideline, and it's like, that's cool, but that doesn't really look like the player. Speaking of running backs, though, if you happen to use that big sweeping juke animation that was just something that everybody used last year as kind of a crutch, that bad boy is gone. When they told me they removed it, I didn't love it. I'm going to be honest, because I use that thing like crazy. Look at any of my highlights that I post on Facebook or YouTube or Instagram. I use it a lot. And to be fair, it's wildly effective, but I'm being selfish, though, when I'm angry about them removing that. But what they've kind of done with the new juke stick and the combinations you could pull off with that is nice. Like most new features, I want to go into practice mode and I want to try to just go crazy to see what I can ultimately do with it. And the combinations I found were disgusting. You can juke at all sort of angles, 135 degrees. I even had a 180-degree back juke that sent a defender to a whole different planet. The beauty of the system, though, in my limited time with it ultimately, though, is chaining jukes together, because that is where you start to really love the system. You're sort of combining like holds of the stick or taps of the stick, along with different modifiers, basically, to give you some of the nastiest highlights we've seen in a long time. I used Christian McCaffrey in the open field. I had a sequence where I hit like a signature hezzy. He sort of ran in place for a moment, followed by a juke to the right and then a back juke, within a spin out of that to go down the field. My stamina was like very little at that point, but I had just enough stamina to pull that off, and I was going. And I think one of the coolest moments about that is that I had a bunch of creators sort of around me at that point, and when they saw me pull that off, everybody got hyped. And I think that's really what they wanted to do with this mechanic, is make it so you have these sort of what feels like limitless possibilities of what you can do chaining moves together and pulling off stuff if you're skillful enough to blow everybody's mind. For me, it feels like we finally have a skill gap with the juking system. And I felt like the juking system last year, while it was fun, it was like the most basic thing you could possibly do. This, though, feels easy to pick up, difficult to master, because your stamina kind of limits how much you can actually do with a player. I talked about running backs having signature animations and how hype all of us were to see that, but I think quarterbacks have some stuff too that makes you pretty happy pre-snap. Is it a game changer? I mean, not really, but it's cool and authentic to see Jalen Hurts in that little squat position that he does when in shotgun, or Dak doing his sort of cadence that he goes through as well when he gets to the line. That stuff adds authenticity and gives you a little bit of realism in your game. Speaking of QBs, though, a quality of life adjustment that I loved is the development team tweaked how fast quarterbacks go in their drop back. The speed at which a quarterback drops back doesn't sound like that much or even that great of a quality of life feature until you realize that it was breaking the pocket containment. It was causing defensive ends to be able to get in more. It was causing issues with the offensive line. And that, to me, is a great fix they've had. It also helps that EA Sports told us they added 500 plus blocking animations this year to the game as well. So, I mean, that helps too. But fixing that quarterback dropback speed and not having the line just break containment every single time, I think that's great. Now, I don't know if this will stop all of you dropping 15 plus yards back in every single one of your gameplays, but that's probably a you issue, not a game issue. In my limited time with the game, though, it did feel like I could stay in the pocket a bit more consistently with teams that had a good offensive line. If your team has a bad offensive line, well, blame the GM of your team. Don't blame the game. The defensive switch stick, which I talked about a lot from College Football 25, is also going to be in the game this year. I think a lot of the above average Madden players are going to love it. I use it a lot to cover drags and slants with my linebacker, and then flicking up to either, a safety or a DB covering a post route or a post corner, or trying to see if there's an out route being thrown and going back there. To me, it's one of those high level skill things that if you are able to use it in the game, you can frustrate your opponents a lot. Oh, and I cannot forget about the spectacular catch mechanic. This thing is crazy. Think of it as kind of a high risk, high reward feature that uses LB or L1, but it gives you a wider catch radius and you can pull off some ridiculous catches. I wouldn't expect to pull down stuff in traffic. I think if you're trying to do something when you're contested using LB or L1 for this, good luck. But in the right situation, you can pull off some stuff that's going to have you go da-na-na, da-na-na. That's Sports Center, baby. One of the first things you're going to notice in Madden 25 once you're actually on the field, though, is the new score bug going from the top to the bottom of the screen. Even playing roughly 4 hours of the game at the studio, my eyes were always looking up to the top, and then I would have to go down to the bottom. I think it's just a visual muscle memory type thing, because for the last however many years, we've had a score bug up top, not down low. The team also talked a lot about real crowd noise being piped into the games, on-field sound effects as well, getting a refresh, which I'm hoping also fixes that bug where you don't actually get on-field noise for your games. And I think while the crowd audio was definitely noticeable, most of my time was really spent paying attention to the 3 separate play-by-play teams that we have in the game for Madden 25. We've had Brandon Gaudin and Charles Davis for 8 years now, and listen, I think they're good. I think their stuff is completely fine, but we have 2 new duos coming in the game, so I think I can finally not just turn off commentary for once. The 2 new duos joining Gaudin and Davis are going to be Mike Tirico and Greg Olsen as one pair, and then the other pair is going to be Kate Scott and Brock Heward. Having Greg Olsen in the game is a massive W. I still feel bad for that dude that Tom Brady took over his spot in primetime, but Greg Olsen is a fantastic broadcaster, and I've loved hearing him call games the last couple of years. I got the chance to meet Kate Scott and actually watch her record some live lines for the game at the studio, and she is incredible. Just hearing a sample of some of the stuff they're bringing this year, I feel like it'll be a nice year to not have to mute commentary from the beginning like we've had probably the last couple of years. But there's over 42,000 new fresh recordings at launch, and they're going to do multiple in-season updates as well. I'm mostly interested to see how the rotation of 3 commentary teams pans out for games, especially in franchise mode, because I think that's where it's going to have the most impact. There's a lot more to touch on for Madden 25, but I wanted to highlight most of the key features that are coming to gameplay and presentation this year. I've got more videos dropping soon for Superstar and franchise mode, and look, I've been critical of both of those modes in the past, but I feel like they kind of made me pretty happy this year with a lot of the things that they're talking about as they approach those 2 modes, especially franchise mode. Oh, and did I mention that Teambuilder is coming to Madden 25 this year? That is a massive win for everybody. My jaw, and like everybody else's jaw, hit the floor, and they told us that. We expected it for college football, but we did not expect it for Madden. You're going to be able to design your own team with customization tools using the Teambuilder website. You're going to have the ability to upload your own logos, personalize your team uniforms, helmets, and field, and I believe they even mentioned alternate uniforms as well. Once you have your squad ready, though, you can import them into franchise mode, and if you're not too creative, you can go ahead and look at their download center, browse a couple of the ones out there, and pick your own to then put into franchise. I play a ton of head-to-head regs in Madden every single year, and the fact that we're getting a true rank mode this year has me hyped too. They did state, though, the matchmaking in head-to-head is going to get some tweaks, some enhancements here and there, but I mean, I feel like every time I match up, it's with some dude just running 2 plays the entire game, so I want to see that in action. To be fair, they said the enhancements they're doing, though, are going to factor in your division that you're actually in and your play style, so we'll see how that goes. The goal in that rank mode, though, was going to be get to the elite top 100, and there's kind of some cool stuff there, but I don't know if I'll ever rank there, but I'm going to try. With that being said, more Madden 25 news is dropping on my channel very soon. Be safe, be smart, tell somebody you love them. Catch you guys in the next one.